where unseen threads entwine all things. Javhan the Hooligan presents Woven Phrase, the Gentez Hub by Javhan the Hooligan. Chapter 1, The Briefing, City of Fenkell Lakers, late 2001 CE. The morning sun cast long shadows across the concrete plaza of the Chamber Tent Center, a 12-story structure rising like a monolith against the Fenkell Acre skyline in Port Doe Province. Inside the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation headquarters, the executive briefing room on the 9th floor hummed with tension. Doyan Pops Rand Sr. sat at the head of the polished mahogany conference table, his weathered hands folded as he studied the three men before him. At 330 Yiklin, Pops had seen enough conflicts to recognize the gravity in their expressions before they even spoke. Chucky Hoey shifted in his chair, his tactical vest still bearing dust from the previous night's reconnaissance mission. Pops, we've got a problem. A big one. The Azarites are better armed than they've ever been, Hank Voss Jr. added, sliding a series of photographs across the table. These aren't the improvised weapons we've been seeing. This is military-grade hardware. Pops picked up one of the images, a high-resolution shot of an Azurite operative carrying what appeared to be a state-of-the-art assault rifle. The weapon's pristine condition and advanced optics told a story he didn't like. Grayson Levy, the youngest of the three at 130 Yiklin, but still a seasoned armaments lieutenant, as well as majority stakeholder with his family's company, United Industries, leaned forward. Sir, we've been tracking supply routes for the past 6 weeks. Every trail leads back to the same source, a new player we've never encountered before. How new are they, Levy? Pops asked, his voice carrying the weight of command that had kept JDH operations running smoothly for over a decade. New enough that our usual informants don't know anything about them, Chucky cut in, but established enough to be supplying multiple Azurite factions simultaneously. We're talking about a logistics operation unlike anything we've seen. The secure phone on the conference table rang, its sharp tone cutting through the discussion. Pops glanced at the caller ID and his expression softened slightly, a rare occurrence that didn't go unnoticed by his subordinates. Excuse me, gentlemen. This is my son. He pressed the speaker button. Ghetto Finger, you're on with the team. The voice that came through the speaker was crisp and professional, tinged with the same authority that ran in the Rand family bloodline. Papa Bear, I'm calling with confirmation on that weapons supplier, Intel. The source has a name now. The room fell silent. Doyan Ghetto Finger Rand and his wife, Quetta Aquaseas Rand, had been running Intel operations for some time, quietly observing the criminal networks that supplied the Azurite factions. If he was calling during operational hours, it meant he had something significant. We all copy you 5 by 5. Go ahead, son. They call it the Gentez Hub. It's not just a supplier, it's a full-scale weapons logistics empire. These bastards got transportation networks, real-time tracking, multiple client operations running simultaneously. These people know where every weapon is at all times. Pops exchanged glances with his team. Chucky's jaw tightened, Hank's fingers drummed against the table, and Grayson was already heading for the conference room computer station to start cross-referencing the name. Any operational details? Pops asked. They operate primarily out of the southern border region of the state of Macomb, just northeast of Port Doe Province. Some sophisticated sons of bitches too, Pops. They're using legitimate freight companies as cover, coordinating shipments all over the nation of Magni Mars 5. This isn't some back alley gun runner. This is a strategic operation that could shift the entire balance of power in the Azurite faction as a whole. The weight of the revelation settled over the room like a heavy think blanket. The Jasper-aligned Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation had built its reputation as a reliable PMC, helping government as well as corporate entities maintain regional stability through calculated interventions in and around Port Doe Province. But the Gentez Hub represented something different, a threat that could destabilize everything they'd worked to protect. Understood, Pop said finally. Stay safe out there. Hug Aqua Seas for me and keep us informed of any developments. Will do. Get a finger out. The line went dead, leaving the four men in contemplative silence. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city of Fenkell Acres spread out below them, a reminder of what they were fighting to protect. Pop stood and walked to the window, his reflection ghost-like against the glass. Gentlemen, it appears we have a decision to make. The Gentez Hub isn't operating under any faction we recognize, which means no one has put a bounty on them. They're not technically our problem, but they're making themselves our problem, sir. Grayson Levy said, rising from his chair. Every weapon they put in Azurite hands makes our jobs that more difficult. I agree with the young lieutenant, Hank added. We can't just sit back and watch as these bastards arm our enemies. Chucky Hoy looked up from his pad where he'd been rapidly writing notes. Sir, I recommend we file a grievance with the state of Macomb. If we're going to move against the Gentez Hub, we need legal authority to operate in their territory. Pops turned back to face his team, his decision already made. Levy, head to Mount Clemens and file the grievance. We go in under our own authority as a private military contractor. But I want intelligence first. Full reconnaissance of their transportation network before we make any moves. Pops turned to his senior strategist, Chucky. Where's that brother of yours? Who, Griffin? Hell no. Fox. He's back home in New Jefferson, sir. Get him on the next IRT tram to FA immediately. I want him here in 30 minutes. When he arrives, I want you and Levy to give him a personal briefing. Instruct him to start dispatching intelligence operatives. I want surveillance teams, bugs planted, the works. I want to know how it tasted when they ate it and what color it was when they shat it out. I'll prepare a briefing for all senior staff members available for later on this afternoon. That should give us enough time to retrieve the Fox, go over any technical strategies with Burkhair Kibbe, and have a legitimate grievance filed with the state of Macomb before we move. Consider it done, Chucky replied. As the meeting began to adjourn, Pops felt the familiar weight of command settling on his shoulders. The Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation had faced many threats over the Yiklin, but something about the Gentez Hub felt different, more organized, more dangerous. Outside the Chamber Tent Center, the city of Fenkell Acres continued its daily rhythm, unaware that 12 stories above, plans were being set in motion that would determine the future of the entire region. The hunt for the Gentez Hub was about to begin. Chapter 2. Move to Action. In a building simply known as the Garage, on the campus of the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation headquarters in the city of Fenkell Acres that once served as a car dealership before the JDH acquired the property. In the center of what once was a showroom floor, Doyan Pops Rand's two youngest sons, Doyan Dutoro Rand and Doyan Diggy Rand, along with Pop's young niece, Ruby, named after his younger sister, Ruby Jean, were engaged in a billiards game. Pops was the father of 6 sons. His oldest, Job, conceived under his marriage to another woman, had no interest whatsoever in military life. And though he would move in to the family-owned headquarters for temporary stays from time to time, he would never enter any of the areas that served military functions. The other 5 sons, however, who all bore his first name at the insistence of the girlfriend that gave birth to them, all showed genuine interest in military and combat. When the youngest Diggy was born, a large assassination plot took place to execute all 5 of Pop's sons that bore his name due to a prophecy that these 5 sons were involved in. After that threat was eliminated by the unincorporated JDH Corporation in around 1988, the 3 older of the 5 were excited to enlist in the military. Diggy and Dutoro, however, having only known a life of exile and being on the run, decided that they wanted to enjoy civilian life a bit longer before they committed to the service. Dutoro, now 85 Yiklin old, and his baby brother Diggy, now 80 Yiklin, still haven't made a military commitment. Despite the amount of time that they spent in the military atmosphere, these two spent a lot of time with their young cousin Ruby, who had been enlisted with the JDH for 5 Yiklin now. When senior JDH officials would try to spirit them away from sensitive areas, they would simply reply, "My name is on the deed to this property, sir," which technically it was. Doesn't seem very productive to argue with the sons of the boss. These little hard-headed sons of bitches only listen when their father was around, a fact that Chucky Hoy took full advantage of as he entered the garage to begin the afternoon briefing. Turn that shit down. He ordered to Diggy gesturing to the stereo on what appeared to be a complex entertainment system near the pool table. Burkar Kibbe handed the young lieutenant Doyan Pops Rand some sort of cartridge that he popped into an awkward-looking device directly in front of the pool table. Pops looked to his 2 youngest sons. "Game's over, boys," before turning to Ruby, looking down at his watch. "Corporal, don't you have some firing range training that you should be attending right now?" Ruby gave her uncle a quick salute and headed to the firing range. "Leave the balls on the table," Pops ordered his youngest son on the way out of the garage as he gave him a gentle tap on the rear. Burkar Ray Kibbe, key to command on the computer rigged inside of what appeared to be a complex entertainment system, and a holographic topographical map appeared on top of the pool table. Doyan Pops Rand Sr. stood before a large digital display screen mounted where the dealership's financing office used to be. 9 men had assembled for the afternoon briefing, their voices echoing off the high ceilings as they settled into folding chairs. Lieutenant Al Flint had arranged in a semicircle, grabbing the 8-ball and placing it on the northern end of the pool table. Pops began. At the wave of his hand, the topographical map centered itself to the northern portion of the province, centering the 8-ball at an intersection near the Sereno Highway and Pickford Avenue, west of the city of Scone. Gentlemen, you're all familiar with this territory. You're aware that it's the territory of the Pickford Predators street gang. It has recently come to our awareness that these bastards now have military-grade hardware. In a recent raid on one of their stash houses on Steel, we've impounded several Humvees, as well as confiscated high-end military weaponry, too powerful to be in the possession of street gangs. Ghetto Finger and Aquaseas, along with several small squads of surveillance teams, have been tracing armament logistics for the past couple of days. This morning, intelligence reports began to come in. This morning's intelligence has been confirmed through multiple sources. The supplier is called the Gentez Hub. It is real, and it's operational, and it's a direct threat to everything we've worked to maintain in this region. Fox Hoy sat in the front row, still wearing the dust-covered tactical gear from his rapid transit from New Jefferson. His 30-minute journey on the IRT tram had given him just enough time to process the initial briefing Chucky and Grayson had provided upon his arrival. Now, looking at the assembled senior staff, he could see the same concern reflected in every face. Hank Voss Jr. leaned forward in his chair. "Fox, what did your preliminary reconnaissance turn up?" "More than we bargained for," Fox replied, pulling out a tablet and connecting it to the main display. A series of surveillance photos appeared on screen. The Gentez Hub isn't just a weapons supplier. They're running a full-spectrum logistics operation. I've identified at least 3 legitimate freight companies being used as cover throughout the Macomb border region. Tyler J. Voss, Hank's younger brother, raised his hand. "How are they managing real-time tracking across multiple networks?" Burkar Kibbe, the team's senior communications expert, adjusted his glasses and studied the images. "That's sophisticated stuff. They'd need integrated GPS systems, encrypted communications, and probably some kind of central command structure coordinating everything." His fingers danced across his own tablet as he spoke. "I'm seeing military-grade communication equipment in some of these photos. This isn't amateur hour." Doyan Pops Rand, one of Pops' sons and a lieutenant in the organization, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Pops, I talked to Getafinger on the phone last night. We might be walking into something bigger than a standard weapons logistics operation." Doug Rand, Pops' nephew and a senior lieutenant, nodded in agreement. "The supply chain implications alone are staggering. If they're coordinating weapons shipments nationwide, they've got infrastructure we can't even see yet. Chucky Hoy stood and moved to the pool table, waving his hand over the top, centering the topographical image to specific locations marked on the holographic map. Which brings us to our primary concern. Intelligence suggests they're not just supplying local Azurite street gangs, they're servicing hostile groups throughout the tri-state area. Every weapon that flows through their network potentially ends up pointed at our people or our clients. Al Flint, another lieutenant who had been quietly taking notes, looked up from his pad. What about their defensive capabilities? If we're going to move against them, we need to know what kind of resistance to expect. That's exactly what we're here to determine. He paused mid-sentence as he looked upon the assembled group. Wait a minute, I'm counting 9 of you. Where the hell is Tazakai? Doyan Tazakai Rand, the third oldest of Pop's 6 sons, was also a senior lieutenant and was supposed to be present during this meeting. I saw Nix pick him up this morning, Doug Rand replied. That's just great, Pop said, rubbing his temple for relief. We've got new weapons dealers arming the enemy, and my son's out gallivanting with his girlfriend. Doug Rand replied, he's probably rolling down the street right now, smoking Indo, sipping on gin and juice. Al Flint laughed with the retort, with his mind on his money and his money on his mind. Pops picked up a cube of chalk and threw it at Al. Do you mind if we continue? Pops replied. He gestured to Fox. Son, what did you find out about their security protocols? Fox switched to a new set of images showing various transportation hubs and depot locations. They're smart about it. Instead of relying on heavy security that might attract attention, they've distributed their operations across multiple legitimate businesses. Makes them harder to track, but also creates vulnerabilities we might be able to exploit. Explain, Burke said, leaning forward with interest. Each node in their network handles a different aspect of the operation. One company manages logistics, another handles transportation, a third deals with storage. They're communicating through encrypted channels, but if we can identify the central coordination point, we can disrupt the entire network, Chucky finished. Smart thinking. Pops walked over to the pool table and began sketching out a basic operational framework. Here's what we know. The Gentez Hub operates primarily out of the southern Macomb region. They're using legitimate freight companies as cover. They have real-time tracking capabilities and serve multiple client factions simultaneously. He turned back to face the assembled team. Here's what we need to know. Where is their central command? How are they coordinating shipments? What are their vulnerabilities? And most importantly, where can we hit them to cause maximum disruption with minimum risk to our people? Tyler raised his hand again. Sir, what's our legal standing on this? Are we operating under contract? Grayson Levy is filing a grievance with the state of Macomb as we speak, Pops replied. We'll be operating under our own authority as a registered PMC, but we need to be smart about it. Minimum unnecessary casualties, minimum collateral damage, and everything by the book. Hank stood up and stretched, the afternoon briefing clearly taking its toll on the veteran operator. So what's the timeline looking like? Pops pulled out his pipe and lit it, thinking to himself. There goes quit attempt number 20. Fox, I want you to coordinate intelligence gathering operations starting immediately. Deploy surveillance teams, plant listening devices if possible, and map out their entire transportation network. I want to know their patterns, their weaknesses, and their command structure. How long do we have? Fox asked. As long as it takes to do it right, Pops replied, but not so long that they slip away or expand their operations further. Burkar, I want you monitoring their communications. Look for encryption patterns, frequency usage, anything that might give us insight into their coordination methods. Burkar nodded, already making notes on his tablet. I'll need access to some specialized equipment, but I can have monitoring stations set up in no time. Doug, Mazikor, Al, you three will be our strike team leaders when we move to the operational phase, Start thinking about team composition and equipment requirements. Chucky will coordinate overall strategy. The group began to disperse as individual assignments became clear, but Pops held up a hand to stop them. One more thing, gentlemen. The Gentez Hub represents a different kind of threat than we faced before. They're organized, well-funded, and apparently have access to military-grade equipment and intelligence. Don't underestimate them. Tyler, who had been quietly absorbing everything, finally spoke up. Sir, what happens if we can't shut them down? What if they're too big for a single PMC operation? The garage fell silent. Outside, the sounds of Fenkell Acres continued traffic, distant construction, the normal rhythm of civilian life. But inside the converted car dealership, 9 men contemplated a question that could determine the future of their organization and the stability of the entire region. Pops looked around at his team family members, trusted allies, experienced operators who had stood with him through countless missions. Then we adapt, we get help, or we find another way. But we don't walk away. The Gentez Hub is arming our enemies, destabilizing our area of operations, and threatening everything we've built here. Walking away isn't an option. The afternoon briefing concluded with the weight of impending action settling over the group. As they filed out of the garage and back toward the main chamber tent center, each man carried with him a piece of the larger puzzle they would need to solve. The hunt for the Gentez Hub had moved from planning to preparation. Soon, it would move to action. Chapter 3. Eyes on the Depot. The pre-dawn darkness of Macomb's southern border region was broken only by the occasional sweep of headlights along the Greater Mac Highway that connected legitimate businesses with shadowy operations. Fox Hoy crouched behind a stack of shipping containers at the Sunnydale Freight Depot, a short distance southeast of the main highway interchange. His tactical gear was matte black, with red JDH insignias, as he led his team through the shadows of St. Clair Shores Industrial Hub. The IRT had gotten his entire team of 50 men, including vehicles, to St. Clair Shores in 35 minutes, a 6-hour drive before the creation of the nationwide public tram system. In the 22 hours that they had been there, they had set up a staging area along Harper Avenue for the deployment of surveillance teams and bug planters. The intelligence picture of the Gentez Hub network was beginning to take shape, and it wasn't encouraging. He keyed his radio for the leader of Surveillance Team Alpha, Ricardo Tall. "How do you read?" 5 by 5, Ricardo Tall replied. "Any movement on the Consolidated Transport Facility?" Fox asked. "Silent as the grave," was the reply from Tall. "Stay vigilant." Fox out. As he put his radio down to grab his binoculars, he just so happened to glance over to his left to see Quetta Aqua Seas Rand, silently standing next to him. "How the hell did you get here?" he asked. She didn't say a word. Right behind her, her husband, Doyan Rand, casually leaning against a supply crate, eating chili cheese fries. "That's why she's the silent killer," he said with a smile. "Never underestimate Aoni 100 Primes," Fox thought to himself as Ghettofinger continued. "Don't worry, Fox. We ain't here to hound you or anything. We're following up on leads. What you got?" Fox asked. "I was one of the first ones to talk to Grayson Levy when he got back from filing the grievance in Mount Clemens. While he was there, he ran into an old client of his, Roki Payne of Quattro Sky Group." "I'm familiar with Quattro Sky Group," Fox replied. "They're one of the oldest PMCs in the province." "Exactly," Ghettofinger replied. "Grayson told me before Roki Payne became one of the high four in the Council of the Quattro Sky. His father, Lorenzo Payne, held the position. Before Lorenzo's passing, he was involved in a secret operation called Operation Reach Out. During this operation, one of his operatives, Bernadette Stubbs, was staking out small-time gun runners in a bar called the Honey Bunch on Grand Boulevard near the city of Zone 8. These gun runners weren't selling weapons that they themselves manufactured, however. These gun runners were selling weapons that they hijacked from citrine armament convoys out here in the state of Macomb and pushing them throughout the province. Sounds like the same old song, Fox added. The Azurite Code, take from the small, sell to the rich. Well, these Azurites weren't just standing in the shadows, Ghettofinger added. It turns out that this faction was manufacturing weapons. Some damn good ones, too. Roki gave Grayson the name of the operative that Bernadette was shadowing. His name is Theodore Dan. We looked it up, and it turns out that Theodore Dan owns CISD Logistics. Before he could finish, Ricardo Tall chimed in on the radio. 2 trucks, military configuration but civilian plates. They're loading something heavy from Warehouse 7. Fox adjusted his night vision scope and focused on the Meridian Depot below him. According to the intelligence gathered, this facility was supposed to be a legitimate freight operation, but legitimate freight companies didn't typically conduct major loading operations this early in the day. Fox, Surveillance Team Bravo checking in. The voice belonged to Corporal Dwight Dent, one of the newer operatives Chucky had assigned to the reconnaissance mission. I've got eyes on what appears to be a central communications hub, multiple antenna arrays, satellite uplinks. This isn't standard commercial equipment. Location Dent? Eastern end of the Jefferson Street Industrial Complex, approximately 2 clicks from your position. Building appears to be listed as administrative offices on the public records, but the power consumption and comm equipment suggests otherwise. Fox made notes on his tactical pad while maintaining visual contact with the depot. Aquaseas jotted down a quick note herself, then ran off to hand it to a nearby comms officer. The Gentez Hub was proven to be even more sophisticated than their initial estimates. A legitimate freight network providing cover for weapons logistics was one thing. A network with dedicated communication infrastructure and coordinated multi-site operations was something else entirely. Looks like your young insomniacs have a good set of eyes, Getafinger said to Fox. Meridian Depot is a subsidiary to SISD ISD, just like Central is a subsidiary to Universal back in the province. Fox got a chime on his radio with an encrypted transmission from Burkay Kibbe. Intercepted radio chatter confirms multi-state operation. Shipment scheduled for Warren, Yaktown, and Inkster within hours. Recommend immediate escalation. Ghettofinger tossed his empty chili cheese fry container. Ain't that a bitch? Burkay was right, and the intel was solid. They weren't just dealing with a regional supplier. They were looking at a weapons distribution network that could destabilize multiple metropolitan areas. All surveillance teams, this is Fox. New priority. I need confirmation of shipping schedules and destination data. If they're planning multi-state shipments, we need to know routes, timing, and cargo details. Copy that, Fox, came the response from Ricardo Tall and Team Alpha. We're seeing increased activity at the loading docks. Looks like they're preparing for major shipments. Fox focused his binoculars to get a better view of the depot's main entrance. A convoy of 3 vehicles had just arrived, 2 civilian trucks flanking what appeared to be a modified security vehicle. The coordination was military precise, suggesting trained personnel rather than typical criminal organization logistics. The comms officer came back to Aquaseas with a portable screen in his hand. He handed it to her and said, "From Team Bravo, Lieutenant." She glanced at it and then looked up back to the comms officer and said, "Good job, Corporal." She dismissed him and turned to Ghettofinger and Fox. She showed them the image of a communications truck, civilian grade but hastily painted over. Thanks to the bad paint job, a faint blue outline of the letters KTT was slightly visible in the photograph. "What is that?" Fox asked. "It's a tech firm," she replied. "We believe they handle communications and networks for CISD Logistics." His earpiece buzzed again, this time with Chucky's voice. "Fox, we've got a problem. Doug and Mazikor were conducting their own reconnaissance in the Eastern Province, and they've been made. Azurite faction vehicles have converged on their position." "Which faction?" 219 MM5 Southeast Division. The same bastards we've been dealing with for years. Apparently, they're providing security for Gentez Hub operations. Ghettofinger felt his jaw tighten. The 219 MM5 Southeast Division had history with JDH. History that went back before the JDH branched off from the Jasper-aligned 194th. If they were now working security for the Gentez Hub, it meant this operation had just become personal. Gatofinger tapped Fox on the shoulder and whispered, "Check on the status of my cousin and brother." "What's Doug and Mazakor's status?" Fox asked. "They're mobile and evading, but they've got multiple pursuit vehicles." Pops wants all teams to maintain mission focus, but be prepared for extraction if necessary. "Copy that, big brother." Fox out. Through his scope, Fox watched as the activity at the depot intensified. More vehicles were arriving, and he could see armed personnel taking defensive positions around the loading areas. Either his teams had been compromised, or the Gentez Hub was preparing for something big. Gatofinger observed the activity at the depots. Without turning to Fox, he asked, "How much intel have you collected so far? We've had stakeouts set up for quite some time. We've got license plates, images of facility personnel, addresses, vehicle descriptions, the works." Gatofinger directed his attention to Fox. "Order all personnel to the IRT. Pops wants us to maintain mission focus." "We are maintaining mission focus," Gatofinger replied. "It's getting hot out here. Doug and Mazakor have already been compromised. It's a good chance that they've communicated to all their networks to keep an eye out for watchful eyes. Our continued presence here is a liability, not an asset. They know they're being watched from afar now. We're going to have to watch them from up close." "You don't mean?" "Yes, we're going undercover." "I hate that shit," Fox replied. "I'm hip," Gatofinger added, "but they know that we're watching them now. We'll have a better chance watching them from up close than watching them from afar." Fox keyed his radio. "All JDH teams pack up and head to the IRT on Jefferson. The area is getting too hot. We're heading back home." Fox paused for a moment, his gaze scanning the horizon before he spoke again, his voice steady but resolute. "This isn't just about the mission anymore. It's about surviving what's coming next." Chapter 4. The Warrington Briefing. The outdoor courtyard at the center of the United Industries complex buzzed with controlled energy as JDH operatives gathered around patio tables shaded by large umbrellas. The Warrington location in the city of Callaghan provided neutral ground for what would prove to be one of the most critical briefings in recent JDH history. Grayson Levy had arranged to host the pre-infiltration intelligence briefing at his family's corporate headquarters, understanding that the proximity to Bagley would be crucial for the operation they were planning. The Gentez Hub's logistics operations in the nearby city represented both an opportunity and a significant threat to regional stability. At the front of the courtyard, Doyan Gatofinger Rand and Doyan Tazake Rand stood side by side, both clearly eager to address the assembled team. The competitive dynamic between the brothers was immediately apparent. "All right, y'all. Listen up," Gatofinger announced. "Okay, folks," Tazake said simultaneously. They stopped and looked at each other with mild annoyance. "In the nearby city of Gatofinger began, we have intelligence that Tazake started at the same time." Both men stopped again, staring at each other with growing frustration. "I'm trying to hold a briefing here," Tazake said pointedly. "Isn't that why I'm here?" Gatofinger replied, "Please let me do my thing here before I tell the boys how I saved your ass from the Pickford predators last week," Tazake warned. "Come on, man. I covered for you in St. Clair. You were supposed to be there. Instead, you were out hanging with your little girlfriend." Gatofinger shot back. "Are we really going to discuss the intricacies of executive production in front of the talent?" Tazake asked with exasperation. Falcon Flint leaned over to his older brother Al and said, "Did he really just refer to us as the talent?" Al chuckled quietly as Gatofinger gestured to the assembled crew and said, "The floor is yours, sir." Tazake straightened his posture and addressed the group. "Grayson Levy was kind enough to host us here for this briefing. Intelligence indicates that the Gentez Hub is running logistics operations in the nearby city of Bagley. Today, we intend to infiltrate the logistics network with a deep cover operation. Grayson Levy will fill us in on the details." Tazakai passed Grayson, a blunt. It symbolized somewhat a speaking torch among some of the members of the JDH, of course in the absence of certain senior operatives. But of course, this was Grayson's house, where activities such as this were definitely allowed. Grayson took a drag and began his briefing, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent considerable time in the service of Jasper. When I filed our grievance with the state of Macomb and Mount Clemens to begin this operation, I ran into Roki Payne of the Quattro Sky Group, an old client I used to do business with in Morningside. I remember, Tazakai interjected. Grayson continued. He gave me details about one of their recently declassified operations called Operation Reach Out, which connects directly with the Gentez Hub. 20 Yicklin ago, Quattro Sky Group operative Bernadette Stubbs was running surveillance on a man named Theodore Dan. Her surveillance revealed that Theodore Dan was recruiting former military logistics specialists and defense contractors who had security clearances. The assembled operatives leaned forward, recognizing the significance of this intelligence. The Honey Bunch Bar was actually a recruitment center where Dan would identify potential operatives with transportation and weapons expertise. He owns the logistics company CISD, which primarily operates out of the state of Macomb, but also has operations in the states of Wayne and Oakland. They also operate here in the province under a subsidiary we recently identified called Meridian. These are smaller conglomerates of a large weapons-running network that we now know as the Gentez Hub. Grayson paused to let the information sink in before continuing with the technical details. Roki informed me about the technical branch of the hub, a tech firm we've identified as Croha Track Tech, or KTT. They track vehicle movements with GPS and inventory with RFID tags. They also run communications between drivers and dispatch about special cargo. The seasoned veteran's voice grew more serious as he outlined the sophisticated nature of their target. But KTT isn't just providing communications. They're handling encrypted financial transactions between suppliers and clients using blockchain technology. CISD Logistics has shell companies registered in multiple states that appear to be legitimate freight brokers but are actually money laundering fronts. Theodore Dan doesn't just own CISD. He's a silent partner in a network of independent logistics companies that all use KTT's tracking systems. Some amongst the group quietly uttered their concerns. They heard a voice call out, "He can do whatever he do, we never sleep." JDH is about to show and prove it, Ricardo Tall muttered from the assembled group. It gets worse, Grayson continued. KTT developed a proprietary tracking system called Cake Walk Crypt that integrates GPS, RFID, and encrypted communications. Originally designed for high-value legitimate cargo, it's now being used to track weapons shipments. The system allows real-time inventory management across multiple warehouses, explaining how the Gentez Hub can coordinate simultaneous shipments to different factions without conflicts. KTT even has contracts with legitimate government and corporate clients, providing perfect cover for their illegal operations. The weight of what they were up against settled over the courtyard like a heavy blanket. Today we plan to infiltrate the Meridian Depot near our current location in the city of Bagley, as well as infiltrate a Croha Track Tech installation southwest of us in the city of Warrendale. You will be divided into 3 teams. Grayson gestured to different sections of the assembled operatives. November team will infiltrate the Meridian Depot in Bagley. Bravo team will infiltrate the Croha Track Tech installation in Warrendale. Golf team will run security and, if necessary, extraction for both squads. If you find yourself in trouble and need to be extracted, use the code phrase, "I'm on the back porch." A ripple of acknowledgement went through the group as they committed the extraction code to memory. Our young friend Dutoro, though he hasn't decided to join our ranks, has proven himself useful yet again by acquiring several CISD trucks for us to use in the infiltration of the depot. So we can thank him and other members of his FA mob gang for getting that together for us. Grayson grinned. It will be a great day when he finally decides to join the JDH. But I guess some of the Five Dancing Sunz have a little bit more waltz in them than others. The assembled group laughed at the reference to the prophecy surrounding Pop's sons. The beloved younger brother of our senior strategist, Chucky Hoey, Sergeant Griffin over there, will fill you in on the rest of the details. Sergeant Griffin Hoey stood up, his presence commanding immediate attention from the group. Thanks to the fine hacking expertise of our senior communications specialist, Burkhar Kibbe, some of you are now listed in their networks as employees of CISD and Kroha Track Tech. So you don't have to worry about job interviews or passing Department of Transportation urine tests. He glanced meaningfully at Tazakai, causing several people in the group to chuckle. Tazakai will lead November team. Your job is to gather intelligence from inside the Meridian Depot. You will gather intel on shift and personnel rotations, security routines, logistics procedures, and things of that nature. Griffin's tone became more serious as he addressed the second team. Bravo team will be tasked with a more intricate job. For that, my brother has selected as Bravo team leader, the Silent Killer. The assembled team applauded at the mention of the legendary nickname. Quetta Aquaseas Rand stood up and performed a slight curtsy, acknowledging the recognition. Your job is to access any server networks that you may find in the KTT installation in Warrendale. Griffin looked toward two other operatives. Mazikor and Al Flint, please stand up. As the two rose, Griffin said with mock seriousness, you two motherfuckers have already been made, so you can't do undercover for shit. The assembled crew laughed as Mazikor threw a balled up piece of paper at Griffin. I'm kidding. Griffin continued quickly. Please don't make me do push-ups. My brother wanted me to make that joke. You two will be in charge of security. Al Flint will run the security detail in Warrendale. Mazikor, you will be in charge of the Bagley crew. Griffin gestured to a stack of equipment nearby. For those of you on the infiltration teams, I already have uniforms fitted to your specifications, as well as counterfeit badges giving you the credentials you'll need to access sensitive areas. Grayson Levy stood and scanned the assembled operatives. Does anyone have any questions? The courtyard fell silent as each operative mentally reviewed their assignments and prepared for what lay ahead. Then it's time to liquidate like fluid, my people. The Meridian Depot infiltration. The Meridian Depot in Bagley hummed with the constant activity of a major logistics operation. Tazakai and his November team had successfully integrated into the workforce, their CISD uniforms and forged credentials providing perfect cover as they moved through the facility gathering intelligence. Through the course of the day, they had cataloged shift rotations, noted security patrol patterns, and observed the intricate dance of legitimate and questionable cargo moving through the loading docks. Tazakai had been particularly careful to keep his distinctive features concealed beneath his work hat, understanding that his face might be recognized by those familiar with JDH operations. The intelligence they were gathering painted a picture of a sophisticated operation that seamlessly blended legal freight services with weapons distribution. The coordination was impressive and deeply concerning. As Tazakai walked down a corridor between warehouses, his hat cocked slightly to hide his face, he felt confident that the infiltration was proceeding smoothly. That confidence was shattered when a dock worker named Chen Reyes did a double take as they passed each other. Chen stopped and stared after Tazakai, his mind racing as recognition dawned. Without hesitation, he hurried to find his supervisor. Sir, we have a problem, Chen announced urgently. One of the new dock workers, he's not who he claims to be. The dock supervisor looked up from his clipboard with annoyance. What are you talking about, Chen? That man is a Jasper soldier from the 194th, Chen explained, his voice growing more urgent. I'm sure of it. Are you certain? The supervisor asked, his expression shifting from annoyance to concern. Yes, I remember him, Chen insisted. He is part of a prophecy, the Five Dancing Sunz. My master, Roderick Murnith, Was obsessed with that prophecy back when I was a member of the Rover Hidani Syndicate. Back then, I went by the name Brother Chen. I ran intelligence for the Syndicate throughout the Fenkells. They destroyed our temple in Connaught Jordan. He is a Jasper threat and not to be underestimated. The supervisor's face hardened as he reached for his radio. Security, we have a potential infiltrator in Warehouse Section C. Initiate lockdown procedures immediately. Within moments, the depot's security forces were converging on Tazakai's location. The hunt had begun. November team, this is November 1. Evacuate immediately. I believe I've been made. Tazakai found himself hiding behind a semi-trailer in one of the dock bays, security personnel positioned on the opposite side of the massive vehicle. He could hear their coordinated movements, their radio chatter, their systematic approach to capturing him. Drawing upon the superior strength that was part of his genetic heritage, one of the traits that made the Five Dancing Sunz legendary, Tazakai positioned himself against the trailer. With a minimum effort that would have been impossible for an ordinary person, he pushed the massive semi-trailer against another trailer. The crushing impact eliminated the security threat, but also announced to the entire facility that their infiltrator possessed capabilities as someone classified as a 25 or above. Tazakai fled the depot, his cover thoroughly blown but his mission partially accomplished. As he reached the extraction point, he keyed his radio and spoke the predetermined code phrase. I'm on the back porch. The Warrendale server raid while Tazakai's team was gathering human intelligence at the Meridian Depot. Quetta Aquaseas Rand led a more technically focused mission at the Croha Track Tech installation in Warrendale. Accompanied by Berkair Kibbe and young Ruby Rand, the silent killer moved through the facility with the precision that had earned her legendary status within the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation. The KTT installation presented a different challenge than the depot. Where Meridian Depot relied on physical security and personnel oversight, the tech facility depended on electronic access controls, biometric scanners, and network security protocols. Fortunately, Berkeray's expertise in communications and electronic warfare made him the perfect partner for this type of infiltration. Ruby, despite her youth, had proven herself capable during previous operations and provided valuable support as they navigated the facility's security measures. The server room they accessed contained the digital heart of the Gentez Hub's coordination network. Banks of servers hummed with the constant flow of encrypted data shipment schedules, client communications, financial transactions, and logistics coordination information that kept the entire weapons distribution network functioning. Berkare worked quickly to extract data, while Aquaseas served as overlord maintaining security. Ruby watched for any signs of discovery from the hall of the server room. The information they were able to access was limited. The encryption protocols were more sophisticated than they had anticipated, but Aquaseas managed to uncover a critical piece of intelligence. Deep within the server architecture, she discovered references to a master disk containing what appeared to be the complete operational framework of the Gentez Hub network. Extract that, she ordered to Kibbe, the JDH senior communications expert, began importing data onto a portable drive, describing the identity and location of a master disk. The disk was located in a secure facility in the city of East Do, north of the Port Do province border in the state of Macomb. That's our target, Aquaseas whispered as Berkay confirmed the location data. That disk contains everything we need to shut down their entire operation. With their primary objective accomplished and the risk of discovery increasing with every minute they remained in the facility, Aquaseas made the decision to extract immediately. She keyed her radio and contacted Al Flint with the predetermined code phrase, "I'm on the back porch." The infiltration phase of the operation was complete. Both teams had gathered valuable intelligence, but they had also announced JDH's intentions to the Gentez Hub network. The next phase of the conflict would be conducted in the open, with both sides fully aware of the stakes. The hunt for the master disk in East Do was about to begin. Chapter 5. The East Doe Assault, 2 miles south of the Ruther River, where the mountains of Macomb began to take shape. The pre-dawn air in the city of East Doe carried the industrial scent of the nearby Port Doe province border as JDH forces assembled for what would prove to be a decisive operation. The intelligence gathered from the Bagley and Warrendale operations had led them here, to an azurite complex that housed a warehouse facility on Firwood Avenue where the Gentez Hub's master disk containing their complete operational framework waited, a complex heavily patrolled by Gentez Hub security forces, with additional protection from the 219th MM5 Southeast Division, as well as the 255 MM5 Macomb Central Division, Azurite National Military Forces, both technically outside of their jurisdiction, but yet working in conglomeration with the Gentez Hub, in the protection of armaments they deemed precious to the Azurite cause. Grayson Levy stood before the leaders of the assembled strike teams in the staging area they had established at Cousin Street, near the Gratiot Freeway, south of one of the East Doe IRT stations. The gravity of the situation was reflected in the faces of every operative, 5,000 JDH strong. This wasn't just another raid, this was the culmination of everything they had worked toward. Gentlemen, Levy began. The intelligence Aquaseas and her team extracted from Warrendale has given us the location of what amounts to the Gentez Hub's brain. That master disk contains their shipping databases, route algorithms, supplier networks, contact protocols, active shipment tracking data, client faction communication channels, and financial routing systems. Hank Voss Jr., serving as field coordinator for the assault, stepped forward with a tactical display showing the warehouse layout they had reconstructed from surveillance data. The facility appears to be a standard commercial warehouse from the outside, but our reconnaissance indicates significant modifications to the interior structure. Reinforced storage areas, enhanced security systems, and what appears to be a hardened server room in the center of the building. Chucky Hoy studied the facility schematics on his tactical pad. What kind of resistance are we expecting? The Gentez Hub complex is secured by their own security personnel. The captain is an A-25 that goes by the name of Mawdog. We can also expect 219 MM5 Southeast Division security forces, Levy replied. These are the same bastards who have been providing security for Gentez Hub operations in the province. And they know we're coming after their compromise of Doug and Mazzicor's reconnaissance mission. Al Flint, who had successfully coordinated security for both infiltration operations, raised a concern. Sir, if they know we're coming, why haven't they moved the master disk? Fox Hoy, who had arrived with additional intelligence from his communal combatant intelligence contacts, answered the question. Because they can't? According to my sources, the master disk isn't just storage, it's an active coordination system. Moving it would disrupt their entire network for days, maybe weeks. They'd rather defend it in place than risk losing operational control of their distribution network. The weight of that revelation settled over the assembled teams. The Gentez Hub was willing to make their final stand rather than risk losing their coordination capabilities. Visible to the assembled team leaders via a large video conference screen from the Chamber Tent Center back in Fenkell Acres, Pops announced, "Here's how we're going to do this. Moving to the tactical display. We go in hard and fast. Multiple entry points, coordinated assault, overwhelming force. The longer we give them to organize their defense, the more difficult this becomes. Grayson Levy will lead the primary assault team, assisted by Mazzicor and Wyatt Cade. Your primary objective is to defeat Mawdog and his security patrols. That should pave the way for our infiltration forces. Make no mistake, gentlemen, Mawdog is a vicious bastard and has some of the sharpest teeth ever produced. Beat Mawdog. It's already going to be difficult enough for the infiltration teams to penetrate, but that will help a lot. Ricardo Tall and Dwight Dent will lead Infiltration Team 1. Your job is to get in and eliminate as much resistance as you can while Infiltration Team 2 comes in to destroy the servers and retrieve the disk. Infiltration Team 2 will be led by Ghettofinger, Tazakai, and Aquaseas. The Hoys and CCI have indicated that server room staff is armed. They access rooms via neck braces and wristbands. You may have to take these from some of their operatives in order to access sensitive areas. The Voss brothers will maintain the perimeter outside while you operate from within. We expect heavy resistance, not only from the Gentez Hub security forces, but from the 219th and the 255th as well. Stay vigilant. Once the servers are destroyed and the master disk is retrieved, Levy and his crew will lead the extract. I'm not taking any questions from this point. I'm only accepting that disk. Go get it. Time to let loose. Ricardo Tall called out as he headed for his armored personnel carrier. Shortly after arriving on Furwood Street, the Gentez Hub security forces were there to give the JDH a warm welcome. Wyatt Cade jumped out of his Hummer, carbine in hand, excreting bullets with deadly veracity. His bopper instincts from his days with the CFD and Fenkell Acres kicking in automatically. What are you afraid of? It ain't nothing but us G's. As he fired shot after lethal shot, Mazikor stepped forward, RPG over his shoulder as he yelled out, coming from that Doe province. He threw up 3 hand grenades. One was struck by a bullet midair from Azurite forces as Wyatt returned fire, shooting down 3 of their soldiers. This is the day UDIE motherfucker, Levy said as they continued their assault. The crack of gunfire echoed through the industrial corridor as Grayson Levy pressed against the concrete barrier on Furwood Street. The JDH assault on the Gentez Hub facility was in full swing, but their advance had stalled when Maw Dog, the complex's legendary head of security, emerged from the compound's main entrance. I'm about to produce a ass whooping on you boys, Maw Dog's gravelly voice boomed across the street. You Jasper bastards picked the wrong facility to hit. The massive security chief stepped into the open, his tactical vest straining against his bulk, an assault rifle held with practiced ease. At 250 Yiklin, Maw Dog had earned his reputation through raw brutality and an almost supernatural resistance to pain. Grayson checked his ammunition and glanced at his team. Keep advancing toward the entrance. I've got this. Maw Dog opened fire immediately, but Grayson moved with fluid precision that defied normal human reflexes. He weaved between the muzzle flashes, his enhanced genetics allowing him to process the incoming fire patterns and react faster than thought. Closing the distance in seconds, he dove into a roll that brought him within striking range. Maw Dog swung the rifle like a club, but Grayson caught the barrel mid-swing. With strength that belonged to someone classified well above at 25, he twisted the weapon from Maw Dog's grip and snapped it in half across his knee. Impossible, Maw Dog snarled, drawing a combat knife. The blade whistled through the air where Grayson's head had been a split second before. Levy's counterstrike was devastating, a palm strike to Maw Dog's solar plexus that lifted the massive man off his feet. Before Maw Dog could hit the ground, Grayson spun and delivered a precision strike to the base of his skull. Maw Dog collapsed onto the asphalt, unconscious but breathing. Grayson straightened his tactical vest and keyed his radio. I got the beat on Maw Dog. Ricardo, Dwight, advance on the facility. The path to the disc is open. Ricardo put the pedal to the metal on his APC, drunk from the adrenaline of the battle. You up against it now, motherfuckers. We only just started letting loose. Do you Azurite bastards realize who we brought with us? Dancing Sunz, bitches. Under the consolation of Leo, Lionheart spit mass liquid. He yelled as he rammed through the security checkpoint. Upon gaining access to the entry point, he exited the armored personnel carrier. Several Humvees of 255 MM5 Macomb Central Division Azurite soldiers arrived in greeting. Get your punk ass out of my state, one of them said. Dwight said in reply, what did you say? I can't hear you over the sound of us whooping y'all's asses. I said the Azurite continued, Before he could complete his statement, Ricardo ripped the door off of his Hummer and struck him over the neck, decapitating him. Looking down at the body, he said, "Mr. Fix-It couldn't redirect that broken English," over a loudspeaker system from the inside of the complex. They heard Theodore Dan's voice. "This is a full alert. Jasper operatives have breached the perimeter and are attempting to gain access to the facility. All staff alert. Be on guard." Ricardo and Dwight continued their assault. He emptied his carbine on one of the Humvees. Occupants of the third Humvee jumped out of their vehicle when they thought he had ran out of ammunition. Ricardo tossed his carbine to the ground and drew his sidearm, executing all occupants. "Ghetto, Taz, time to shine, baby," Dwight announced over the radio as Ricardo whispered to himself. "The Desert Ease is the only safety for a G." At the southern border of the state of Macomb, full chaos ensued. 5 city blocks of unmitigated carnage as Getafinger, Tazakai, and Aquaseas entered the facility. "I heard y'all got plans for fucking up my pesos," Getafinger yelled over his barrage of gunshots. "We ain't having that," Tazakai yelled in return. "As hard as we plot and plan for these figures, you motherfuckers is in for it." Outside on Furwood Street, the Voss brothers encountered a new enemy as the battle continued. New clients of the Gentez Hub, the 376th of Port-au-Provence, had arrived to protect their stake on a significant investment. Inside of the facility, Ghettofinger tried kicking the door to the outer perimeter of what was assumed to be the server room. The reinforcement stronger than his Aeon 100 prime capabilities. Tazakai tried breaking through a door, a wall, nothing. Too strongly reinforced, Aquaseas darted off further into the complex as Ghettofinger looked on in surprise. He looked over to his brother. "Will you please follow my wife to see what the fuck she's up to?" as he continued trying to break down the door. Tazakai caught up with Aquaseas, who had several Azurite members in her sights. As Tazakai aimed his weapon, she halted him. She approached the men with neither care nor caution, stripping them of credentials, ripping ID laminates off of 2 of them, and snatching off wristbands with a viciousness that almost ripped off their hands entirely. She smashed several vases on the floor and broke the glass from reception windows and ordered the men to take off their shoes. When they hesitated, Tazakai said, "Bitch, you heard her. Come up out them goddamn shoes." Opting to keep these Azurites alive, yet non-effective, Aquaseas gestured her brother-in-law back to the server room entrance. "You lucky motherfuckers," he said as he left them in their condition. With the newly acquired credentials, they made their way into the server room, quickly gained access to the master disk, and destroyed the server. Upon exiting, Tazakai decided to check on the Azurites. They had left in the other part of the facility to make sure that they were still non-capable of combat. He noticed them still in the poor condition they were left in, stripped of access keys throughout the facility, and barefoot around a floor full of glass. "You're fortunate to survive this day," he said. "If I ever see you again, I'll strip you of your shoes again and make you walk 678 miles through glass, fucker." He glanced over to the facility-wide PA system, obviously evacuated by Theodore Dan once the strike had begun. He couldn't resist himself. He keyed the microphone and opened up all channels. "Gentez Hub, you are over. You have officially been served by the JDH, Voss Brothers, Aquaseas, Grayson Levy, and this bitch." His brother was heard from the background saying, "And Ghettofinger, motherfucker." This is just another day as he dropped the mic to exit the facility. Aquaseas keyed her radio. "Server destroyed. Disk retrieved. Prepare for extract. Tyler J. Voss, responding over the air. We're a little busy out here. Maybe you could come give us a hand? Grayson Levy, cut in. Hold your positions. Protect the disk. We'll mop up out here." The Voss brothers were in the middle of a furious gun battle with forces from the 219th as well as 255th. But a new Azurite force had entered the fray, the 376th, one of whom he was arguing with now as he continued the gun battle. "Who the hell are you supposed to be?" Hank Voss Jr. asked. The mighty 376. Port-au-Provence. I like the way you put yourself in the position to bomb back. Hank Jr. replied, but I eat azurites for breakfast all over the province. From Fenkell to Gratiot, you all are bastards. They exchanged fire amongst each other for a while, until Wyatt Cade arrived to back up the bosses. I don't give a fuck, he don't give a fuck, we don't give a fuck, he said in between sporadic bursts of gunfire. Returning favor slightly to the JDH in this battle, but domination was achieved with the arrival of Mazikor. This is Fenkell Acre's finest, he yelled as he emptied his carbine. Tossing it out on the ground, he pulled out his grenades and flung, a scoop for you, a scoop for you, a scoop for you, as the Azurite forces withdrew in retreat. He yelled out, they come in all kind of flavors, but with G's they roll. And with that, the path was cleared for the extraction of the disc. Grayson Levy announced over the radio, let's get back to sacred land and out of this God-forsaken state. When we get back to the province, I'ma burn my boots. The mission had been accomplished. The expansion. The 9th floor of the Chamber Tent Center hummed with the familiar energy of a successful operation, but the atmosphere in Doyan Pops Rand Sr.'s office carried an undercurrent of tension. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, the lights of Fenkell Acres twinkled in the evening darkness, a peaceful contrast to the chaos that had unfolded earlier that day in East Doe. Pop sat behind his desk, replaying the tactical feeds from the assault on his multiple monitors. In all his yickling, he had witnessed countless operations, but watching his son Tazakai's radio broadcast from inside the Gentez Hub facility had left him deeply troubled. The office door opened, and Tazakai walked in with the confident stride of someone who had just achieved a major victory. His tactical gear had been replaced with casual clothes, but the adrenaline of the successful mission still radiated from his demeanor. Pops, we did it, Tazakai announced with a grin. The Gentez Hub is finished. The disk is secured, their network is down, and... Sit down, son, Pops interrupted, his voice carrying a weight that immediately sobered Tazakai's celebration. Tazakai took the chair across from his father's desk, his expression shifting from triumph to concern. What's wrong, Pops? The mission was a complete success. The mission was successful, Pops agreed, leaning forward with his hands clasped. But that broadcast you made over their PA system was reckless and dangerous. It was a victory dance, Pops. We earned the right to. You mentioned operatives by name. Pops cut them off. Voss Brothers, Aquaseas, Grayson Levy. You put targets on their backs for every enemy faction that might have been listening. The Gentez Hub may be finished, but their client networks are still out there. Tazakai's jaw tightened. Those operatives are legends in their own right. That wasn't a target on their back. That was a singing of their praise. That's not the point, Pops replied, his voice rising slightly. As a leader, your first responsibility is to protect your people, not to put them at risk for the sake of your own ego. The words hung in the air between father and son like a challenge. Tazakai stood up slowly, his own authority as one of the Five Dancing Sunz evident in his posture. My ego? Tazakai asked. How long has my loyalty reigned, Pops? Every mission, every operation, every decision filtered through this office. For Yickling, my loyalty has been to this family, to this company, to the Jasper cause. Maybe it's time I be loyal to myself for a while. Maybe it's time for a different approach. What are you saying? I'm saying that this eagle now has wings strong enough to take flight out of this nest, Tazakai replied. The JDH has multiple outposts, led by men that couldn't stand in the shadow cast by my leadership, where I could take this company. I'm saying I'm starting a new branch in the tree. We've got operations throughout the province, contracts with multiple government entities, corporate clients across the tri-state area. Maybe it's time to expand. Pops leaned back in his chair, studying his son's face. What comes out of your mouth as expansion comes into my ear as division. Who said anything about division? Tazakai asked. I'm talking about growth. I've been talking with cousin Prince Maxwell about leasing property off the Burnside Highway in Davison. Establish a JDH branch that can handle operations in the Eastern Territories. The mention of the Maxwell family name caused Pops to raise an eyebrow. He was well aware of the blood of his son's mother flowing through his veins. The Maxwells, Pops said thoughtfully. You're talking about venturing into the underworld. I know a lot of people see the Maxwells as gangsters, Tazakai replied, but they don't cause harm. They're not evil. You know that. Even Granddad couldn't convince you. You stayed with my mother until she died. But Kodos is balanced. It's not about good or evil. Pops leaned back in his chair. You're speaking like an Azurite, son. The prophecy speaks of 5 dancing suns, not 5 dancing sons under one roof, Tazakai replied. Dutoro and Diggy haven't joined the organization yet because they don't see a place for themselves in the current structure. A Davison branch could give them that opportunity. Before Pops could respond, the office door opened and Getterfinger walked in, clearly having overheard the latter part of the conversation. Hold up, Getterfinger interjected. We're already 2 band members short, and now you're gonna break up the band like this? Tazakai turned to face his brother with a slight smile. I'm not breaking up the band, Ghetto. I'm expanding it. Expanding it all the way in Davison? Getterfinger asked incredulously. How was that supposed to work? The same way any successful corporation works, Tazakai replied. Multiple locations, coordinated leadership, shared resources. The JDH brand gets stronger, not weaker. Pop stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the city that had been the JDH's home base since its founding in 1989. The silence stretched between them as he considered his son's words. No, Pop said finally, his voice firm. If you want to do this, you do it on your own. You don't take any JDH home-based resources. Tazakai's expression hardened. So you're cutting me off? I'm letting you prove yourself, Pops replied, turning back to face his son. If you think you can build something better than what we have here, then build it. But you build it with your own resources, your own connections, your own reputation. Fine. Tazakai said, standing up straighter. I'm taking my portion from the JDH accounts. I'm starting my own JDH base, not outposts in Davison. I'll procure my own armaments and vehicles utilizing Maxwell resources. I'm taking my staff with me, and we'll continue the story from there. Getterfinger looked between his father and brother, recognizing the finality in both their voices. Taz, you don't have to do this. We can work something out. No, Ghetto, Tazakai interrupted. This is how it needs to be. The old man wants to see if I can make it on my own, and I'm going to prove that I can. He walked toward the door, then paused and looked back at his father. The Maxwell blood in my veins isn't a weakness, Pops. It's a strength you should learn to appreciate. As Tazakai left the office, Pops remained standing by the window, his reflection ghost-like against the glass. The prophecy was unfolding in ways he hadn't anticipated, and perhaps that was how it was meant to be. He looked over to Getterfinger, seeing the sadness in his eyes that he hadn't seen since the death of his mother. As Getterfinger chanted to himself, whose house? Jan's house. The sun seemed to go down a bit slower that evening from Mazakor's perspective as he stood in Ruby's apartment, gazing out of the window as she packed in preparation to leave with Tazakai. Well, you have grown on the Maxwells over the Yiklin little cuz. You may not be one by blood, but you definitely have the spirit of a Maxwell. I'm not sure if I like it myself, she replied. I'm Fenkell by blood, that's for sure. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself in Davison. You're going to do whatever your superior officer orders you to do. Big Bro will lead you the right way. I'm sure of that. I'm going to miss watching Diggy at the races with you guys, Ruby said. You say that like you're never going to come home to visit, Mazakor replied. Maybe not for a while, Ruby answered. Pops isn't letting us take any of the vehicles and weapons, so we're going to have to establish on our own. I always knew that the JDH would expand, but not like this. Not with senior staff members splitting up, Mazikor said. You guys are still the Five Dancing Sunz, Ruby replied, no matter how far apart you are, and we're still in the province. We're just going to be on the east side now, a whole 1 hour and 30-minute drive away, Mazikor said. Ruby zipped her last bag and flung it over her shoulder as she turned to face her cousin. This isn't goodbye, this is see you later. Besides, if I play my cards right at Davison, the next time you see me, you might have to salute me before you hug me. You dream, young lady, Mazikor replied. You dream. A few days later, Quetta Aquaseas Rand entered with a younger woman who bore similar features and the same confident bearing. Pops, Aquaseas announced, I'd like you to meet my younger sister, Quetta QG Lewis. She's expressed interest in joining our operations. QG stepped forward with a professional demeanor. Sir, I've been following my sister's work with the JDH for some time. The success of your operations confirms that this is exactly where I want to be. I'm not one of the Lewis family law dogs like she is. I figure while she's finishing up her classes at Madonna, I could step in and fill the void of any absence of hers. Pops managed a slight smile. I remember you from the wedding. You look exactly like your sister, who looks exactly like your mother. You're already family, so welcome to the JDH, young lady. I'm sure you'll make us proud. Perhaps the loss of my A100 son could be made up with the gain of my A100 daughter-in-law, he thought to himself as he welcomed QG to the JDH. As the two women discussed integration plans, Pops couldn't shake the feeling that the Javhan Dominion Holdings Corporation was about to enter uncharted territory. The Five Dancing Sunz were once again under separate roofs, but this time not in exile, and the story of their rise was far from over. The saga of the JDH will continue. The end. This was Gentez Hub, one of many books in a series called Woven Phrase by Joquan the Hooligan. All rights reserved.